What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Live on the Beat, Hartford, Connecticut's official podcast from the City Troubadour in conjunction with the Hartford Public Library, the Bushnell. Thank you to all our supporters, all the local artists, businesses, and everybody in the 29 towns of Hartford. Today we have a very special guest, someone who's been like a brother to me since I met him. His name is Ghazi Omair. But before we get into the interview, I want to let y'all artists know that we have the Hartford Public Library launching the next submission cycle for the beat, which means you could end up in this interview seat. You can end up in the city's official podcast streaming platform. And if you want to submit your music, you go to thebeathartford.co/submit. Not .com, .co. So one more time, that's thebeathartford.co/submit. And by the way, for y'all don't know, / means the top goes right. People always mess that up. Alright, well, we'll be back with my brother Ghazi Omair right after this.
Battery low.
Hold on, let me charge it.
Alright, and we're back live on the beat. Much anticipated. Been looking forward to interviewing you and showcasing your talent to those who have not met you yet, and go further in depth on your background for those who already do know you, because you are such you have a rich culture. You're like a connoisseur. You're like a cosmopolitan. You're like an archival chemist of music and hip hop sound. I remember when I went to college. One of my dreams was to get a degree at MCing. I already had my master's from the streets, master's MCing. You know what I'm saying? But I was trying to get a bachelor's, and it was just so hard for me to figure out how I could get certified in hip hop and performing and writing and stuff like that. So I ended up getting a computer science degree. But you got to be damn sure that every class I did, I turned into a hip hop project. My computer science project was a production program. My political project was hip hop as a political platform. Education was hip hop as a pedagogical tool, and so on and so forth. So when I say all that to say that UHart is one of the places in this area where people can actually go to get a degree in music and engineering. There's a legacy of Jackie McLean and Dolly McLean and so forth, who also used to live in the building of the New Eurekan Poets Cafe back in New York, for those who don't know. So there's a rich history of UHart, and that's one of the places that you got a degree. So real quick, why did you choose to get a degree? Was it like me where you wanted something, you already knew you was into music and trying to figure out a way to further it? Or was it something else? How'd you end up at UHart?
Well, I'll say, first I'll say, to answer that, I'll say, my music goes back to my childhood. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a very musical home where all type of music was played. Okay. Jazz, hip hop, mm-hmm. reggae, mm-hmm. R&B. R&B is actually my favorite genre of music. Okay. But to fast forward it, I had a recording technology program in Windsor. Okay. Ran by Mick Dufak, who was very integral to my getting into the production and engineering side. Mm. And then when I was looking to go to school, you're looking at all the different majors and such, and I loved music. And Mick one day said to me, he was like, you could go to school for that. And I'm looking around. I seen NYU, saw a lot of different schools, and being here at Hartford, I picked University of Hartford. And for me, I'll say University of Hartford was a great place to be, as far as being around so many different artists, so many people who are technical, others who are creative, and then it gave me a place to meet musicians, meet producers, meet singers, rappers, people that are looking into getting into photography and the arts and whatever it was. And I'm a social person, so everything was there, you know. The studio.
People taking it seriously.
Yeah, you pull up at the studio, access to the studio all night, being there 3-4 in the morning.
Well, I remember you used to run the studio. Let's not be humble. You used to be the person that ran the studio, so they had to check in with you if they wanted to use the studio. And before we go further, you could do electrical engineering, so many kinds of engineering, audio engineering, and people always confuse them. And I know you were a candidate for sound engineering, audio, as well as electrical and technical. So what was your decision making process for that? Choosing.
So with the program at University of Hartford for audio engineering, we took electrical courses.
Okay.
We took sound design courses.
So you started out in audio engineering.
I actually started out in mechanical.
Started out mechanical.
Yes, and it didn't, for me, it just didn't, the vibe wasn't there. The type of people that I needed to be around. And the things that I felt like I needed to learn. And I ended up switching into that, and it was like, it was night and day. It felt like where I should be. And I think that's a big part of life, is just sometimes knowing where you should be.
Thank you for saying that, because I know there's a lot of young people in the situation we were, where it's like, I like to say in elementary and high school, you do what like your parents are proud of and what's fun, and then like up through high school, you do what like you're really good at. Because by then, you can't just be you enjoy it. People start checking you, like, you know, like, you on the team or you not on the team, and this and that, right, in high school. But in college, you have to stay up and write these papers and put a lot of work in. So it's not even about if you like it or if you're good at it. It gets to a point, like, is it worth being up 3 nights in a row working on a project for this thing?
Well,
do you want to be known for this thing?
I want to throw something in there because for me, you know, I love philosophy, sociology, those kind of things. But for my core degree, a lot of the work ended up being recording. A lot of the projects were mixing a record, you know, can you get a band together and record them? Can you record in this style? I had other friends that were doing rock and all these different kinds of music. So it never felt like work, because it was like you were already doing it anyway, and you're getting a grade for it, and you're meeting people.
That's the gem. That's the gem. And you're gonna be tested to that degree in college, grad school, whatever, where it's like, it's good practice for parents, children, spouses, people that depend on you to do this thing. Not just you're good and you pop up like the little kid that jumps on YouTube and goes viral because he rapped for 5 minutes or played the saxophone upside down. It's like these things that go viral, a lot of times they're about someone being good in a flash pan moment, right? But college really is like behind the scenes, you in your dorm room, you in the library, having to commit to this thing. Not because it's exciting and people don't expect you, but because people do expect you to do that every single day. And I do know you're into philosophy because you're one of the most serious book readers that I know, that I've ever met. You know, every time I saw you, you'd always be reading a new book or referring me to a book. And you've read books on music, you've read books on culture. You've even put me on the books about Hartford, which is amazing for this podcast. So that ties into one of my next questions. We just played the intro. You're featured in the intro to the Live on the Beat. So what was that like? Like how did you get pulled into feature on the intro? How did you get pulled in to be one of the first cohorts of the Live on the Beat? And how do you like the experience so far of being included in the city's first?
It was great. It was great. Shout out to Nigel on that one, and he reached out to me, let me know that he was working on a project with the Hartford Public Library, and I make beats anyway, right? We write rhymes anyway. I'm writing rhymes anyway. So he just said, "Yo, I got an idea." Shot the idea to me. You know, I said, "I'm down. I'm just working on something and you just capture me just messing around, messing around with a beat. So like I said, it's stuff we doing anyway.
Yeah. It came off almost kind of like a sample roulette type of thing.
Right.
It's almost like he's seeing you just mess around from scratch and then walk down the street in Hartford.
Right.
I just thought it was brilliant.
And I think the beat is great because there's a lot of talented artists in the Hartford area and in Connecticut, and we kind of get overlooked.
Yeah.
Right. But there's so much going on here, and I think this platform, having the showcase, having the podcast, having a streaming platform for people to find it, because a lot of people are looking for music and they might not know where to go to find the music, and it's like, boom, here are artists right here in your own city, in your backyard, that are, producing bodies of work.
Yeah.
And a lot of people work together, so you might pick a project and that person might be on another project, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's dope. I thought it was cool how the first cohort, a lot of y'all performed together at the Bushnell. What was that experience like?
That was an amazing show. I actually...
Different genres together too, right?
Yes. So I would classify myself as a hip-hop artist.
Okay.
Lost Tribe, shout out to Lost Tribe. I don't know what we would classify Lost Tribe as, because it's like...
Fusion.
So many... It's fusion. It's so many different...
fusion.
It's so many different genres in one. Then you got Mixer Sean, and he crushed it.
Yeah.
And for that show, there was some new work, new poems, new stuff that I was working out, and that was a great place to introduce it. And it's in the Bushnell. I've never performed in the Bushnell before.
Oh wow!
So that was great. That's a historic.
That was one of the best shows I saw at the Bushnell. That's a good first show.
Somebody came up to me a couple months later, and was like, that show at the Bushnell, like, I still think of that show. And I think that's
actually Dom was here. Dom is our host for this location, Court Vision, and he was there, and I hadn't seen him really. He was just coming back to go on the event, so that was a special night. It just brought all that right energy. But go ahead.
Yes, and it's just like it was a beautiful show. A lot of people came out, and I got to work with people that I enjoy working with. Shout out to Michael Palace, one of my close homies I collaborate with a lot.
Yeah, got
to bring him in on a couple of the songs, and we got to do Unarmed Black Man off of my project, which is an instrumental project called Lavender.
Okay.
So it was good, and I got to reintroduce some of the music in a different way that maybe people hadn't heard it before.
What was it like to be collaborating with other people? How did you arrange that?
Well,
because it seemed, from us looking in, it seemed like everybody planned the thing and could be on tour together. But I'm 100%. Sure it wasn't all like everybody there doesn't do that set all the time, right? Like Mixer Sean, like there's a few different separate acts.
Well, I think that's the jazz aspect.
Okay.
Like I said, I look at myself as a hip hop artist, but I do work within jazz.
And that's part of hip hop, right? It's like fusing together different.
And to me, that jazz aspect of like, this is the idea that we have, but it can go left, it can go right, it can go this way, right? So it's like we all collaborate anyway. Yeah. So it's like, well, what can we do to make this show different on the spot right now?
Maybe that's part of not just what hip hop is, sampling, but maybe that's part of what jazz is too. It's like we turn it into this is a musical style, but it's more like an ethos of
it's
of being in a place where you love and appreciate different things, a philosophy of saying how can we use this and add our genuine self to it, and then let the next generation maybe do that. So in that sense, maybe hip hop was just the next generation of jazz.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree. I feel that's the beauty of getting artists from different genres or different spaces to collaborate, because we all think different. We look at creating different, and when you start working with other people, you go, oh, I never tried it this way, or I never thought of doing this or doing that, right? And I look at a lot of the stuff that's going on in hip hop right now to me as an extension of the blues.
Okay.
Right? Now, the reason I say that is if you listen to the lyrics, they're talking about their pain, their struggles, what they've been through, what they're seeing That's the blues.
Right.
You know, it doesn't sound musically like what the blues did in the past, and that kind of what can trip us up because the future doesn't sound like what we're used to, right?
Right.
But it's all an extension.
It is. Yeah, Jocelyn and I, one of our previous guests and collaborator of yours from Lost Tribe, we just did a project for the state because Connecticut is now like mandating Black studies and Indigenous Latin studies in all the high schools. So I'm so proud of Connecticut. Connecticut is the first state to do this. Jessica Care Moore is coming up for the conference. Chris Emden is coming up, you know, the hip hop professor. So,
yes, yeah.
You know, all of that. But we did a project where we talked about the evolution from Africa and the diaspora through the blues, through hip hop. And I showed how flipping things in hip hop and double entendres directly comes from a blues form, right? Even if MCs don't know they're doing it. So I'm so glad you said that. What do you think about this idea of sampling while we're on this? Because I know one of my favorite tracks that I have, I'm actually going to be performing it at a social justice event because it's so relevant. And when you gave me the sample, it was so beautiful. The artist sampled on it, was so beautiful. When I went to Contact, there's a master recording owner and there's a songwriting composition owner. So there's someone who owns the melodies and notes as they would be written on a sheet, and there's someone who owns the recording that was that day's rendition. And the master recording rendition people were cool, and their whole staff emailed me and we worked something else. And then the underlying people you could tell they had a bulk of stuff and they were doing $1 million deals and they didn't really have time for an artist like me. But yet, I still have to go through them to get this, right? I actually spoke to the son of this artist and he loved the track. And he was like, yes, and thank you for contacting me. But there's one part that made this difficult. Because see, in hip hop, you could either dig in the crates where no one's going to find a sample and put it out, right? And not blow up the spot on yourself.
Right.
Or you could like make it a big deal and honor the person and everything. But the downside of that is if you're honoring them, then people know where it came from. And I love and respect, we both love and respect this artist so much. I want to go that route of honoring them and letting them know. And now I'm in this like Black people getting persecuted for simple things and being criminalized space where it's like his son loves it. Everyone knows this is a positive track. Half of the copyright from the master's fine, but there's this one administrative part that I'm waiting for. And these people that administrate and own it aren't even the artists themselves.
That's a big thing.
Or the family of the artist. So blues to jazz to hip hop. It's like we're trying to pass on for the next generation, but some of these administrative things kind of keep us.
I'll say the business or administrative aspect to music. It's a whole nother ball game, right? It can stop a project and make it take a lot longer than it should. But to speak to the creative aspect of sampling, I'll say
crucial.
Sampling allows you to reimagine the music, right? Because music is a language, and we're putting, just like a sentence, you move the sentence around, it has different meaning. You move the notes around, it has a different feeling, has different meaning. And I listen to the stuff that's going on now and the way cats are sampling, and it's like every generation finds a new way to flip a sample, or to make it sound new, or put different type of drums on it, put a different rhythm on it, and it makes you feel.
A lot of times it's the drums.
Yeah,
a lot of times it's the current drums with that thing.
I know what you mean. And it make you go, I never even looked at it like this. You know what I mean? So I feel like for me with sampling, that's one of the things I love, and I think one of my favorite artists is Melvin Van Peebles, the filmmaker, R.I.P., who passed away last year. The filmmaker and poet and writer. And there's an interview he has where he talks about basically working.
One of the first prototypes of hip hop, probably.
There you go.
I heard a project he did in Germany. You know, this is a Black American, but there's an album he put out in Germany. That was probably one of the first pre-hip hop style albums.
And he has an interview where he talks about basically working around roadblocks, racism, and systematic structures. So I think with the music, sometimes we just gotta be a little creative, think outside of the box.
Yeah.
with it. You know, maybe we know so many musicians. Maybe get somebody to play it over, do it a little different.
Yep.
I don't want to say nothing illegal with the music, but I might chop it up a little more.
There's lots of ways to do it.
Or sample your friends. Like, that's another thing I've been thinking about lately. Is like, sample your friends. Yeah. You got so many people putting out.
Well, shout out to your Lavender project. I hadn't heard anything like that before, it is exactly like what you're talking about. It is something where you could say, what is this? Is it jazz? Is it hip hop? Is it spoken word? Is it fusion? You know what I mean?
And that's what I wanted to do, because I feel like with me, people know me for different things. Some people might know me for rapping. They might know me for production. They might know me for engineering. They might know me for photo. It's so many different things. And when I did that project, I wanted it to be where you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that, right? And when I sampled a lot of the pieces that I sampled on, it was very intentional. Like, I sampled Jackie McLean on Jackie Past Mars. That was very intentional. I sampled Ahmad Jamal on there, R.I.P., who recently just passed away this year. Yep. You know, like, that was very intentional. Wayne Shorter as well, who's recently passed away. So it's like, looking at that project, I picked specific jazz musicians that to me meant something, and to the culture that meant something. Yeah. But I also put certain drums on it to make the music, give it a whole different feel people might have never looked at. Like 808s on, you know, on this sax line.
I'm so glad you said for real. It's like, it's not like this. It's something else. Like, I'm hearing trap, drill, jazz. I'm hearing things that someone would say, that's not that category. That person don't mess with this person. And you're like, yeah, we do. Yeah. We right here in the same cipher. And it's organic and genuine. It
even look at country music right now. You got country music, and they throw in the trap drums under the country, you know, under the country music. That's true. And I feel like music right now, it's like a culture where everything's blending together. It doesn't matter what genre we call it. People are finding new ways to put a spin on it, and that's how I think of the music, and I want to be, you know, a part of that.
I think it's funny because that's why when we talk about the master copyright and the composition sheet music copyright, that's why that copyright was created, because it used to be that you bought sheet music and then people, different communities would perform it. Right. Nobody heard a recording. You made money because people printed it out so that they could take to different places. And it was really about uniting people and different people playing it. It was never the same. Right. And so it's weird that it's come to a point now where that particular copyright can actually divide people. Yes. Because like the names you said, all of the names you said, and more who you've incorporated in music, you're not speaking about them like, let me get them and hide this, you know, and you know what I mean? You're speaking about them like, I respect them. Because it's in a way, it's almost like you're bringing them, not just in a way they haven't heard before, you're bringing them to people who they would be dead to. Yeah. They would not survive past their physical death. And these musicians and these producers and these samplers are bringing their essence and appreciation of them and respect for them through the sampling and remixing. Right. So that's the part that really is heartbreaking for me. When I see that getting stopped, and this system of administration is making it easier for us to not respect our elders and not respect the legacy, because we're actually criminalized for bringing it to new audiences. But maybe in a spiritual sense, what I'm realizing is maybe in a spiritual sense, you don't need to show that because it is musical. Right? In a regular platform, it's like, this is this person and here's their bio and this is what they did. But in a musical sense, maybe just including their chords and stuff and you knowing and discussing it with other people who love them.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset thing too, because remember at one point people were sampling and there weren't even laws on it yet. Right? So if you look back at hip hop was one of the genres to take sampling and make it what it is right now. Like if you look back at some of the drum machines when they first came out, they weren't made specifically for hip hop. Now drum machine companies, they cater to a hip hop genre. So I think it's just about getting people and those administrators to look at the music differently, how we look at the music. So then that can change.
Shout out to all the music administrators out there who are changing the way this is done, and maybe give them credit to some of these people that invented these machines who never got credit, right? Who was just like in the hood, in the ghettos. We could go into that whole other topic, but I appreciate you delving into that. So I want to move on to another topic. Being an MC, a writer, a poet, a producer, an engineer, you're so many different things. Did you have resistance? Did you have role models who you felt like, oh yeah, the people I look up to do a lot of things? Or was it like you were like, I don't see anybody doing these different things, and it was something different for you?
I'll say it's the first. Like, I pull influence from many different genres of music, many different forms of art, many different ways of living, right? So for me, like Jamel Shabazz, I love his photography, right? So I'm pulling from him. We got Tesla as an engineer. Now there's a vehicle named after him, right? But in school you learn about Nikola Tesla.
I didn't. But even props to your teachers. I wish I had learned.
I don't even want to say it's school per se, but it's seeking the information out, right? Like I didn't go to school for writing, but I'm more known for writing than engineering. Yeah. You get what I mean? Yeah. One of my favorite writers.
I was feeling he figured this out on his own. He learned about Tesla. Like he's a student.
It's like if you look for it, right? Like one of my favorite writers is Ralph Ellison.
Okay.
So when I started reading about Ralph Ellison's life and him also being a photographer, him also doing different forms of art, it's like the people that I'm looking into and looking for inspiration, I find that they're very similar. We talked about Melvin Van Peebles, right? Like he did all of these different things because to me, you have the ideas and the art form that you pick is just that particular way that you want to express, right? So maybe I have an idea and that idea comes out as a beat. Right. Maybe it comes out as a song. Maybe it comes out as a poem. Like I literally wake up and a poem will be in my mind. And it's like, oh, I gotta write it out. Yeah, you know, I'm sure you walk around in the bar, come to you, he's like, that line hard. I gotta write that down.
That's why I tell students to have something right here.
Because if
it's over there, you're not gonna remember it.
You might have a minute because we doing so many things in life. It come to you and you gotta capture it. I mean, that's what paper is, right? It's capturing it. That's what photos are, capture, right? That's what recording is. We're capturing time and space. So I've just always been a person that's...
But the way you put it, I just realized you're capturing something that's beyond time and space and putting it into time and space.
Right.
Because just to backtrack, you said something very deep. All artists that I've spoken to, whether they're rappers, singers, dancers, inventors, right, to go beyond conventional art, there's something that happens in the unconscious mind when we're asleep, and between the hours of like maybe 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe 2 to 4, somewhere in that, people are in this deep state where if they can wake up, their mind has come up with the answers using years of their experience in this discipline.
Right.
And they can write it down or record it. But again, the body says, we're not going over there to practice right now. We're going back to sleep. The mind says, okay, we'll get it in the morning. But the body says, nah, we're not worried about that anymore. So to be able to capture that, it's not something that's here otherwise. It's something that's coming from very out there, wherever we're transmitting to and from, and very in here, deep in our unconscious mind.
And it's tapping into other people as well.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer of that because no one can do anything by themselves.
No.
Right? Everything that I've ever been able to accomplish and do has been with assistance or guidance from someone else. Planting that seed in my mindset. Like, literally... I remember I went to an event one time. This is downtown in Hartford.
Okay.
And it was a writer from the Hartford Current. She was releasing a book on Frog Hollow, the neighborhood, right?
Okay.
So I pull up, I'm in the cut, and I asked a question about another neighborhood in Hartford.
Okay.
And she said, "Well, I wrote this one, you know, like maybe that's for you." And I left the event, and everybody literally everybody in the spot was like, "So when's your book coming out?" I had no idea of writing a book, right? That made me start writing short stories. You get what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes it's tapping into others and paying attention to what's going on. Even with certain, there's a piece, I can't remember the song right now, but shout out to Matt Duanzik, who's also on the Beat platform, and we just had a show yesterday
Yo.
at the Artist Collective. But one day I was chopping it up with Dwanzik, and he sent me a song.
Okay.
He said, "You should sample this." What did I do? I sampled it. It's on Lavender. You get what I mean? So it's like we have to also pay attention and tap in with our peers, and that's one of the reasons I really like collaborating. Is if you do it yourself, it's going to take a long time. But if you collaborate and work with others around you, and there's a world of collaborators. Everywhere I go, I meet dope artists, and I try to connect with them, whether it's St. Louis, Miami, Atlanta, Philly, Baltimore. It don't matter.
You travel a lot. So one, you have a great knowledge of the diaspora, but when you say everywhere I go, I meet, like, do you go places to meet other artists and collaborate, or do you just have a fond love of traveling? You know, Hartford, one of the things about Hartford being such a small place and an underrated place, it's full of people from everywhere and culture, right? So let's talk about that. Why do you, have you always been a traveler? And there's clearly a lot of people who never leave Hartford. Right. Like never. They be on the block forever.
And that's everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go.
I've gone places.
New York, Chicago,
I've gone places, and people will be like, "How do you know about this?" And I've been there a week. Right. Like, I've been here for 15 years. How do you know? And for me,
have you always been like that?
I feel like I'm an explorer. I like to explore. I like to seek, and I'm a people's person.
Yes.
And I like to hear other people's experiences, where I draw a lot of my art and.
So you don't need to get booked for a show or some event necessarily to go. You're gonna go.
I'm gonna go places. Regardless. Like,
and you might be there to do a show. You might end up doing a show.
If it's a show, that's a plus.
That's a plus, right? But you gonna go.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go regardless. And I feel like.
And the show will happen.
The show will happen. You could make you know what? Another thing too is you could travel. People are trying to do what you're doing where you are, where they are. Right. You can go out there and do a show. Right. They can come to where you are and do a show. And you could.
Right. And you trade shows sometimes.
Back to what we're saying, that's how you create a whole new sound. Because everywhere has a. Right. When we think of a sound or style, every period in time has a different style.
That's true.
The 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s.
People time locate and people place located
right. And then
too.
The regional
East
sound.
Coast, South.
You can go down to St. Louis and get a whole nother sound, and people are like, yo, I never heard nothing like that. Because you're mixing your culture and what's going on where you at with where they are and what they got.
And it's funny too, because there's been so many times where I've seen the sound of a place, and when I get the backstory, the sound of that place was someone went to another place and it stood out enough for them to care about it. Right? And then it became localized in that place.
Even drill, right? Drill is very big with hip hop right now. And you got Chicago, you got New York, you got the UK. You got all these different places, and then you go, well, where did it really start? Right. But it's the concept of everybody sharing. We're sharing culture, we're sharing sound. Right. You know, like when I think of production, the stuff that the drill artists are doing, like the people that are producing that music, wild. It's wild. Like we never heard that kind of sound before. They're sampling and throwing drums on it that you wouldn't have thought of even 4 or 5 years ago.
I'll say this just directly to you, since I'm talking to you. I've heard some of these sounds before and patterns, and I've even produced some of them before.
What's the saying? It's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. But that's the thing about, again, someone repeating it and honing in. And that's one of the things why this is a special interview for me as a brother of yours, because you have a similar gift and challenge. I don't know if it's a challenge. You carry it very well. I think I carry it sloppily and clumsily.
What you mean?
Like, I produced, because, you know, I first got to deal with a big record label, Def Jam, which was a dream. And then I ended up going to college instead, and I still, shout out to my brother Mez, still got to do a lot of Def Jam type things. But when I was producing, I came up with, like, I realized there's something that hi-hats do. There. And I'm not just doing it as a style, I'm doing it emotionally. If you put a lot of hi-hats together, there's a specific thing it does, which I would want to do with it. And people, because it wasn't fit in a certain style, I might not use that all the time.
Well, here's the thing. You could be too far ahead of your time. That's another thing.
You could.
You know what I mean? When we look at art or anything, you have products or things that are created that fit what's going on right now. And you have people who are thinking of the future. And maybe the public hasn't caught up with where you're trying to go. Right. You know what I mean? That's why when you look back at certain music, you go, he was doing this way back. Right. So it's like there might be some songs you have where you was doing certain things on the songs and people like.
You ever see footage of brothers from like the 1920s? They doing hip hop moves and beatboxing and everything like that. You're like, oh, they bringing it back. But not even just the time. In addition to the time, it's also the place.
The place.
So there might be a specific time where, like, I'll give you an example. I was getting a lot of love from the hip hop jazz playlist with a project that you recorded with me.
Yeah.
That was produced by my brother Damien Curtis. King Solomon.
Shout out King Solomon.
You know, that's a self-control project my brother right here recorded, and we could get way into that. But one of the things
we should talk about that.
We should come back to that.
One of the things I want to point out is when you brought up like the different things that I do, right? For me, not only is it what is my thought process and what I want to use, but also what am I needed for? If I need if it needs a verse, I can provide a verse. If it needs a beat, I can provide the beat. If it needs mixing, right? Like sometimes we as artists or creative people, you're trying to do everything, and you have to learn that it's teamwork. Right? Like I used to love playing ball, right? Like I'm a small guy. I can't be in the paint getting no rebounds. That's not where I'm supposed to be. Right? So it's learning that, like, well, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? So like for instance, when I work with you, I'm listening to your intonation, I'm listening to your syllables, I'm listening. You have a certain flow. I'm making sure your flow comes out evenly. You know I'll make you do it 100 times until I feel like it's right. But then you might do it one time and you'd be like, should I do it again? I'm like, no. That the first one was right. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And that's very comforting to me as an artist because people know me as a leader and talk and I do all these things. But when I'm in that space, I just want to rap. I just want to be in the zone. Way. So I like having someone who I can just be like a kid again. I can see, should I do it again? Should I not do it again? Because I can just focus just on the rap. Right. If I have to think about the critique of it and how to do it's good or bad. It doesn't matter. There's no opinions in it. It's just the zone. What do I do now? Where do we play next? Right. So I appreciate you for that.
It's like performing. You can't be performing.
And I would recommend you to anybody out there looking for collaborators. I would recommend you, as I do my brother Pup as well. You know my brother Pup. It's certain people that just allow artists to be in their zone. You know what I mean? So definitely you need to get your flowers for that.
Thank you. But like when I work with you, I try to pick a beat that's gonna let you shine, right? Where people can hear the greatness of your words, because you're the type of artist where not only is your flow gonna be special, but the words and the meaning behind what you're saying, right? So if you notice, a lot of our work, I might slow the beat down a little more, right? And you might not notice it until after you're like, my other songs sound like this. Yeah. So I'm thinking like, well, I want to slow it down a little bit so they can really hear everything he's saying. Because he might say something that might
sometimes there's a vibe where it's just the flow. Sometimes it's just the key. Sometimes there's a party people just want to hear the key. Sometimes it's about how many syllables or how many fast. Sometimes there's about a chorus. But I think what's challenging for some artists like yourself is you're a griot, a jolly, a troubadour. You know, you're someone who is tasked with passing on information, right? So in addition to a few, it's not like you sacrifice the key and the hook and all these things. Right. But in addition to that, you also want to make sure you're passing on information that's going to stay with people.
Right. And like for me, when I work with, I'll bring up who I brought up earlier, Michael Palace. When I work with him, I'll do more of a bone structure of the beat. And he's more of an intricate thinker, and he knows the music. He knows what key it should be. I don't know those things. Okay. So I'll lean on him. Okay. You get what I mean? Yes. I'll shoot him something, and the beat sound totally different. I'm like, whoa, right? When I work with Jocelyn Pleasant in the Lost Tribe, she's already, the vibe is set. I don't have to do nothing but come up with the lyrical representation for the music. Okay. Right? When I work with Dwanzik, it's like certain... I just try to look at what can I contribute to this piece that's needed.
This make me realize I gotta collaborate with you more. I always want to collaborate with you, but I gotta intentionally find a way to collaborate with you more. And hopefully after this, more people will be wanting to as well. I got a couple more questions, but to put a bow on this, I remember I was getting a lot of love from the project we did. Because it had a lot of jazz inspirations as it was going through flows, it got more and more hip hop jazzy. So the hip hop jazz community was giving me a lot of love. And then I did a track with my brother Chesky, And it was not completely to me, but in the popular perspective, imagination, it was a more rock and roll, hardcore style sound, right? And they kind of, first of all, that's not going to fit on the hip hop jazz playlist. Okay?
Right.
Honestly. Like, it's not going to mix right in. But two, with their identity of me being an artist who they want to place on their playlist. They don't just want to play songs. It's easy to place people there. Right. They kind of felt almost betrayed. Not just like, okay, it's hard to put him here, his song here. They kind of felt like, oh, I thought he was in the hip hop jazz community. You know what I mean? And I noticed the box, right? So how do you feel about that? Do we need to focus on like one album at a time, one genre at a time?
I feel like,
because I see the pros and cons of it.
Every artist is different, and I know if people that are creative, you get the idea and you just go, right? So me personally, like when I read a book, I'm reading that book. I'm not reading. I know people that'll do like 2 books. I can't. Yeah. I need to take in the information. I need to analyze it. I need to talk to someone about it. I need to soak in, right? For me personally, when I'm working on a project, I might have something on the side I'm doing, but I try to just focus on that, because then you end up with bits and pieces of everything, but not a whole thing of one, right? It's like taking water and pouring it into a bunch of different glasses. You could just pour it in one, you got a full cup. Pour it in 4 of water like that. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I know you're saying intellectually, but it's hurting me because that's what I do. I'll pour 10 drops of water.
But this is where the help comes in. This is where we reach out for others for help, for what's needed to complete what we're trying to do. Yeah. Instead of being like, well, I'm going to do the mix. I'm going to do this. Yeah. I'm going to do that. Like, nah, well, check out the mix. Let me know what you think. Or can you know what I mean? It's that collaboration. Yeah. It's key.
So let me ask you about Hartford. Why is it important for Hartford to have this platform, Live on the Beat, in particular for Hartford? Like, why is that? Why does the world need Hartford to do that? In the context of what you said Hartford is this heartbeat of America, where all this diaspora stuff comes to this pretty small local area that's almost like a time and space capsule of all these cultures, from the Caribbean to Eastern European to Asia. There's all these communities that really are grounded here.
It's all right here.
Why is it important for you to be located in Hartford? Thank you for not leaving. You know, everybody goes and stuff like that. Like, I remember you graduated and you did your jobs in New York and everything. But why is it important for you to be based out of Hartford and for the world to have Hartford bubbling out? How do you think Hartford, this type of project, right, highlighting Hartford is helpful to the rest of the world? It's
important. I feel like anywhere I go, I'm gonna highlight Hartford. I've been places where people don't know that we're here, and I'll say, boom, 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 I'm from here, this, that, and they're like, oh, I'll perform out there, and then they're like, what's something going on over there, right? And a lot of times the negative gets highlighted in Hartford, the things that are going on. Those things are happening, they are real, right? But at the same time, there's so much positivity, there's so many restaurants, there's so much culture, there's so many people, there's so much music, there's so much to do if you tap into it. Right. And I think that should be highlighted. You know, like we don't have to go far. It's right here. There's stars right here. Yeah. Right? When you think of the concept of a star, the star is way over there. It took a long time for the light to get to you. Right. Right? So I look at it as,
sometimes those stars ain't even there.
They're not there no more.
But we physically see them in reality.
You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
So I look at Hartford as that, as we got a lot of stars here that people ain't see. Yeah. And a lot of times you do have to leave to get seen, but it doesn't mean that you still can't represent where you're from. Like, a lot of people come from Hartford that are touring the world, that are doing world tours, that are famous right now. Yeah. You know, in all type of aspects. Facts. And people, you might walk by somebody and you might not know he about to be in Europe tomorrow. That's right. Or he about to be in LA, you know what I mean? Or he in DC or New York, wherever. Right. So it's that concept that we got stars here and they're shining. Yeah. And I think the beat does a great job of putting that shine on the artist, showing that, boom, there's something going on here. And then the platform shows, you want to see him live? Because
Right.
That's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Studio work, the writing, and then performing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
It's different aspects.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Which is you one of the few people who I know that really, at least from the outside looking in, you master that.
I'm trying.
It's unbelievable because really, I know people who just mix a certain way, and then people who just master tracks a certain way,
right.
And people who just play a particular instrument in a certain style. So it blows my mind that not only do you do these different things, but you do all of them to a degree where people actually come to you and pay you and try to get trained by you on how to do these things.
I just try to pay attention. That's what I think it is. We're in an era where we're very distracted, right?
Do you shut off your phone or something?
I don't use my phone at night. I try not to.
Okay.
It's we got all type of apps and all type of
You
things.
put like the blue light, the night.
I have the blue light on all day.
Yeah, I do now too.
But
I was turning on at night, and I was like, "Why am I even turning this off?"
I try not to at night. I try not to use it as much.
Yeah.
Because if you
like after 10 or something.
Yeah, the light it'll keep you up and it'll keep your eye. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
even just in space, like you know how you walk into a room and everybody's like this.
Yeah.
I'll introduce myself and try to meet as many people because I might only have an hour with you.
Right.
Right? Now I could turn this hour into an opportunity where I get to learn about what you got going on and see what events you got going on or whatever you have.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could sit there like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the opportunities are there. It's just about tapping into the right now. I think that's how I end up getting opportunities a lot of times. Is I'm very interested in other people. I try to support people as much as I can. Anybody that knows me knows they probably see me at their show or see me somewhere or promoting other people's event. Half the time it ain't even my event, but it's back to that concept of what you're saying is shining the light on what's here.
Another perfect tie-in.
If we all promote each other, more people are gonna come.
And
you bringing your fan base, I'm bringing my fan base, or whatever it is.
This is another perfect tie-in. It's funny. I had a dream the other day that the next time I put a single out, instead of like advertising to all kinds of playlists and everything, I'm gonna hit up people, and you are one of the people in my dream. I'm gonna hit up people that I know. And be like, can y'all all post this?
Right.
Like, what if we all just posted like 100 people that we know? Like, we all have this picture, this link on that day. And then there's this thing about exchanging reciprocity. Sometimes you don't want to ask because you feel like you don't deserve it or they don't deserve it. But if I know you got music coming up and I got music coming up, I'm going to do this for you, brother, and you do this for me.
It don't cost nothing, right?
No.
You look at advertising. Half the time you buy that shoe is when you've seen it the 100th time.
Right.
Half the time you know the song or you start liking the song is after you heard it 20 times.
Right.
You first, I don't like it.
Right.
Okay, I like it. But it's the same concept. If you posting it, I'm posting it, the person might see it the first time, swipe, and be like, oh, whatever. They see it 20 times, I'm going to pull up. 20 times. I've seen it.
This is why we end up promoting things that we don't like more than people we love. So, you're one of the people I love. I want you to be promoted, and I'm gonna be more intentional to like promote your stuff, and to ask you to promote my stuff because it's just an honor to work with other people. It's like sometimes you spend money, you're like, oh, I just spent money, now I only have this.
Right.
There's times when you spend money where you feel good.
Right.
Oh, I got to contribute to this. I can't wait to spend money at this restaurant again. Or buy this album again. These days, nobody need to buy a CD.
Right,
people don't usually even use. But it feels good to buy that CD from some artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of which, what are some of the things that you got coming up that would be a great way for people to promote you or support you?
So I am working on some new music with various producers. Shout out DJ Z Rex out in New York. He's a great producer. Shout out him. Shout out Joel Hewitt. He's a bass player and phenomenal producer as well. He just been pulling up on me and playing stuff, and he just be like, "Hey, what you got?" And I gotta write something. He like looking at me like, "What you got?" I just start making something. So I got some new music, got some new poems, and been incorporating it with music that I've been working on.
No, I love that. The rap poet. That's what I like.
Got some shows. Yesterday we did the Baby Grand with Dwanzik and the Dwan's Tet. That was a great band.
Okay.
June 21st.
So the music you're working on, that's gonna be released to be
later.
decided.
Yeah.
But you got some shows that you already know when they're coming
June
up.
21st. I got that one. That's with Jocelyn the Pleasant and the Lost Tribe at the Bush.
Shout out to Jocelyn, previous
Bushman
guest.
Theater. Doing another show with her July 29th. I got some stuff with Dwanzik and the Dwan's Tet as well. Then I'll be opening up for the Hartford Jazz, the summer jazz program that I'll be going on. I'm doing that July 30th. So anybody that watches it, definitely.
I heard you had a show like yesterday too.
Yes, that
the
was
Artist Collective.
Yeah, Artist Collective. That was a great one.
Yeah.
So follow me on Instagram, Ghazi13X. Follow, more shows might pop up.
Is that the main place where all the shows you got coming up in the
I
music
usually
go to
post.
Instagram?
I do post on IG. I am working on a website now, so that hopefully will be up pretty soon.
That'll be in your IG link, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Ghazi, Ghazi 13X.
Yeah, 13X.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Man.
I do want to say we gotta put some work out, because I will say some of the stuff we've recorded is probably some of my favorite stuff.
That's one of my next things. I'm just releasing, like, the past 2 things I put out aside from Backpack. Shout out to Backpack. Solo stuff. I'm putting out stuff that I've recorded for a while and been dealing with all this administrative stuff, and I'm just like, nah, I gotta put this out. So our stuff is next. You know what I mean? Let me pick your brain real quick. Bonus chapter. What can people do when they want to record, before they get to the studio, before they work with you? If I just want to put things together, what equipment do I need? How do I get started at home? Or should I just wait till I get in the studio? Because I feel like you're one of the people who's going to say, don't wait till you get to the studio. You can use What's 3 things someone can do at home? If they're a singer, a poet, a rapper, and they want to be ready for the studio,
Practice.
What do I do at home to make sure I'm ready before the studio?
Practice. Because the studio, I'll say this.
So it's not about equipment, you saying?
No, the equipment doesn't matter.
I'm surprised. I thought you would say.
I do have equipment that I use personally that, like, I found this is the sound that I want. Okay. Right? But that's different for every person. So
there is affordable equipment someone could record at home.
Very affordable. Okay. You can buy an interface for $100, $200. Okay. You know what I mean? You can get a mic $200, $300, $400. Like my mic.
So a mic and an interface. Let's just say that.
Mic
before someone gets to the studio,
you can get Logic for $200.
A mic, an interface, and a software.
But I want to say this because you don't always have to record yourself. The thing I say, one of the biggest things I say is this. Different forms of music use the studio different. Hip hop uses the studio as a creative tool. Right? We're creating the song as we're making it in the studio. Right? Like, I'm going to make the beat right now. You're going to come up with this right now. You're going to pen it right now. So it's like we're making it in the studio. Right. Jazz or live music, certain different forms of music, country music, other, right? They come in when it's ready. Right? Like, we come in to prep it in the studio. Now, for me, working with different artists and different forms of music, I picked that up from jazz musicians. Like, practice. How often do you literally sit and read your raps? How often do you sit and just go over your poem?
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, just in fun time. They call that the shed, right? Like, they're shedding. How often do you literally
just... Andre Chappelle, he taught me that term.
How often do you just sit and instead of going on Instagram for 30 minutes, go over your rap, put the beat on, like...
Check out Ghazi13X on Instagram. Then go to the shed.
Like, one of the things I enjoy as well, like, a lot of my shows, I freestyle a lot, right? We freestyle a lot. Right. I freestyle. I've gotten artists that never freestyle to freestyle. Yeah. I will literally sit home and freestyle for 30 minutes. Yeah. By myself or with 2 other cats. Yeah. Because that's the practice. Because what do you think writing is? That's freestyling and putting it down. Right. So if I could freestyle and it's clicking.
And salute to a lot of the real thorough jazz musicians too, because they do that as well. They don't just practice by rote, right? At a show, real jazz, you're gonna see some improv solo go off. You know what I mean?
And that's for me. That's what I.
And hip hop almost gets some of that from jazz.
Oh, it's in a similar vein. And for me, that's one of the reasons I like working with jazz musicians is that concept of, this is what we're going to do right here. But once we get up there and the music starts feeling a certain way and the crowd feels a certain way, we might pick a different song. Good. I might look at you and say, I think this song needs your solo on it. I know when we was rehearsing, I asked this person, but right now I think it needs.
I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
That's not a reason not to practice. It's more of a reason to
But
practice
then,
so that
if
you
you
can
do,
adapt.
yes, exactly.
I get you.
It's having the roadmap and saying, okay, we on the same page. That happened last night. Dwanzik, we performing, and the energy in the room was just, it was up. It was way up. And I looked back at him. He gave me the look like, we gonna take it a different. We gonna. I know we were supposed to do this, but we gonna go somewhere else. With. I'm like, all right, I'm with you.
Okay.
You know, so I like that aspect of it, and that keeps the energy up because you have to pay attention. What does it right now in the next 5 minutes? What does this crowd need? Do they need a ballad? Do they need another hype song? Do they need a freestyle? Do they need a written? Do they need something political? You know, what is it?
I want to thank you so much. There's so many gems, and there's going to be a lot more conversations between you and me and collaborations. And it's an honor to have you here live on the beat. And, you know, one of the gems I like to take away is just find time away from your phone. So many people don't even know what they would do without their phone. But you've done a beautiful job of explaining how your mind and soul can work and how your community can work when you do put down that phone, right? Because people will just hear put down the phone like it's healthy, but you've reminded us what happens, the practice, the shed, who you become, how you develop all these skills when you find time to put down that phone. Read books. So many people don't even read books anymore. We'll listen to books and say, I read a book.
Right, it's different.
Read the book.
You know, I never really could get into that. I have friends who listen to them, but for me, I have to really, I don't know, reading it.
And people don't know that experience. They're so out of touch with the experience, they wouldn't even know that.
And here, you know what I think it is too?
People would feel that way if they had that experience.
With the phone, you can multitask.
Right.
I could talk to you and do this at the same time. Right. I could fake half watch a movie.
Right.
But like when you're watching a show and you're not doing anything else, or like we're having a conversation, you're 100% in tune, or you're reading, your mind might say, I should go do it. You have to stay here.
Yeah, holding it.
You have to stay right.
Your eyes.
And before you know it, an hour, 2 hours went by.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know? I just seen an interview of a writer. I can't remember her name right now, but she said one of the things that got her into writing was, actually it's the current writer for Oprah's book club. I saw the interview, and she said one of the things that got her into writing is when she would write, time would disappear. Because you're so immersed, right? It's finding that thing that you enjoy so much. Nothing else is the zone. You can't stay in the zone forever.
The flow state.
The zone, right? Being there, and it's like, whoa, that was...
There is no forever, because you said it. There's no time.
Right.
There's no time. There's no space. Catch Ghazi in the zone. Love you, bro. Thank you for being here.
Peace.
See you soon.